They said it was just a story, a script carefully written for television. They said every smile, every glance, every stolen moment was simply the work of two talented actors who knew exactly how to captivate an audience. But the truth, the real truth, was far more complicated, far more dangerous, and far more forbidden than anyone dared to imagine. Behind the bright lights of Istanbul's most glamorous sets and the carefully staged interviews, something was happening. Something no camera was ever meant to capture. From the very beginning, when Yaman and Demet Özdemir appeared together on screen, there was an undeniable spark. Fans called it chemistry. Critics called it a perfect casting choice. But those who looked closer, those who studied the way their eyes lingered on each other just a little too long, or how their laughter seemed to echo even after the director yelled cut, they knew this wasn't just acting. This was something real, something powerful, and something that had to be hidden at all costs. Because in their world, nothing was ever simple. Love was not just love, it was a risk. Every relationship came with headlines, every whispered rumor turned into breaking news. And for Can and Demet, two of the most talked about stars in Turkey, the idea of letting the world know about what was happening behind closed doors was impossible. It would destroy their careers, fuel endless gossip, and perhaps even end the show that had made them household names. So, they did the only thing they thought they could, they tried to hide it. But how do you hide something that grows stronger every day? How do you silence emotions that scream louder than any camera flash? Fans began to notice the smallest details. A slip of the tongue in an interview. A photo captured on a night when they thought no one was watching. The way Can's hand seemed to reach instinctively for Demet's, even when it wasn't in the script. At first, it all seemed innocent. After all, actors form close friendships all the time. But as the weeks turned into months, the lines between fiction and reality blurred. Were they still acting when their characters kissed on screen, or had those moments become their only chance to live what they weren't allowed to confess? Each scene left fans arguing online. It's real, some shouted. No, it's just professional, others insisted. But behind the curtain, away from the flashing lights, the truth was undeniable. There were late-night phone calls, messages that couldn't be shared, and long silences that spoke more than words ever could. There were meetings arranged in secret, always with the fear of being discovered. Can, known for his boldness, suddenly became cautious. Demet, who had always been open-hearted, began guarding her emotions as if they were treasures that could never see the light of day. This wasn't just a romance, it was a forbidden story. A love that had to exist in whispers, in shadows, in glances stolen when no one else was looking. And like all forbidden stories, it was destined to either be revealed in a blaze of scandal, or remain locked away forever. But what no one knew at the time was that this secret, this carefully hidden truth, would one day come crashing into the open. Because no matter how hard you try, love has a way of demanding to be seen. It didn't start with fireworks, it started with details. The kind of details most people overlook, a softening of the voice when one spoke the other's name, a second too long between a line ending and cut being called, a smile that arrived before the script said it should. On the second week of filming, during a rehearsal blocked only for camera angles, Can's hand brushed Demet's wrist as he reached for a prop. It was nothing, really, an accident anyone could dismiss. But the way both of them paused told a different story. A breath caught. A look flickered. Then they reset, professional, as if the moment had never existed. People on a set see everything. The sound tech who hears conversations when mics are off. The continuity supervisor who watches for changes in the smallest gestures. The makeup artist who notices when blush is covering something other than lighting fatigue. And slowly, whispers formed not in words, but in glances exchanged across monitors. No one wanted to be the first to say it out loud. But everyone felt it, a gravity building between them. There was a night shoot in early spring, one of those damp Istanbul evenings when the city smells like rain and sea salt. The scene was written as a tense confrontation. The director asked for restraint, a simmering tension that never quite boiled over. They ran the scene, and on the first take, Demet's eyes clouded at a line that wasn't meant to hurt, but somehow did. She turned her head an inch, just enough to suggest the character's secret. Can matched her with a quiet that wasn't in the notes. He let the silence hang, let it speak. The crew leaned in. The camera rolled longer than planned. When cut finally came, no one said anything for a breath too long. Someone joked about the power going out on set. Someone else coughed, loud. The director smiled and said, again, but softer, like he was careful not to break something delicate. It kept happening like that. Not every day. Not every scene. But enough times that patterns appeared. They started sharing things that didn't look like sharing, playlists exchanged with a casual, "You might like this track," dog-eared pages of a novel left on a chair back with a sticky note, "This part." Coffee orders memorized without anyone asking. A scarf lent and never fully returned. These weren't declarations, they were breadcrumbs, small signals left in places only the two of them would notice. Interviews became their most dangerous terrain. Ask any actor, the world behind a press junket smile is full of traps. One question could turn into a headline within minutes. So they developed a choreography. If a reporter asked about chemistry, Ken would laugh first, buying Demet a second to breathe. If the next question pressed too hard, Demet would lean in with something light, a joke that redirected the current without fighting it. It looked effortless. That was the point. But sometimes, after the interview ended and the camera lights cooled, Demet would take a step back like she'd been holding her breath underwater. And Ken, without saying a word, would find a way to stand at her side, just close enough that she didn't feel alone, just far enough that no one would notice. There was one afternoon between setups when the studio hallway went quiet. Sunlight came through a high window in slanted stripes, dust hung in the air like confetti that had forgotten how to fall. Demet stood by a bulletin board reading the day's call sheet, fingertips grazing a corner of paper the way someone might touch the spine of a memory. Ken approached with 2 paper cups, one marked with her name and a tiny smile someone had drawn next to it. No one else was around. She looked at him, an unguarded look that asked 100 questions neither of them could answer in public. He handed her the coffee and said, "Break's almost over." It was nothing. But the way she held the cup, carefully, like it might spill not coffee but secrets, told the truth. The crew learned to read the weather between them. On days when scenes demanded distance, they were perfect professionals, sharp, clean lines, dialogue like polished glass. On days when the script allowed softness, something passed between them so gently that even the camera seemed to breathe quieter. If you watched the footage frame by frame, you might catch it, the half-smile that arrives before a cue, the micro-tilt of a head that says "I hear you" when no one is speaking. And yet, for every step closer, there was a matching step back. That's how forbidden stories survive. After a take that rang too true, they'd retreat into separate corners, talking to different people, flipping through their phones like screens could shield their hearts. They pretended to be busy with what everyone could see, while protecting what no one was supposed to find. The first rumor didn't come from a tabloid. It came from a casual post, a blurred photo of a rap night dinner, faces overlapping, hands lifting glasses, laughter caught mid-rise. In the far background, barely visible, 2 people leaned a little too close, sharing a sentence no one else could hear. Most viewers scrolled past. A few didn't. They zoomed in. They asked questions. They didn't yet have answers, but they had a feeling. And feelings, once lit, are hard to put out. It always starts with whispers. Whispers that grow into questions, questions that turn into stories, and stories that explode into headlines. For Can and Demet, the whispers began as soft as background noise, innocent speculation on fan forums, fragments of conversation overheard on set, comments from crew members who weren't as discreet as they thought they were. At first, these whispers seemed harmless. But whispers have a way of echoing, and soon they became impossible to ignore. The first spark came from a single photo. Not an official press shot, not a carefully orchestrated campaign, but a grainy image captured by someone with a phone. The photo didn't show much, Ken leaving a cafe in the late evening, a cap pulled low, his leather jacket half-zipped. A few minutes later, Demet leaving the same cafe, bundled in a scarf, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses despite the darkness. The photo could have meant anything, they might have been there separately, might have left at different times. But fans are detectives when they want to be, and within hours the internet was ablaze. Why are they at the same cafe? Who else was there? What are they hiding? From that moment on, every movement was scrutinized. Every Instagram post was dissected, every interview watched frame by frame. If Can shared a song on his stories, fans searched Demet's past playlists to see if she had once mentioned the same artist. If Demet posted a photo of a sunset, people compared it with the skyline Can had uploaded the week before. Coincidence wasn't an explanation anymore, it was evidence. And evidence, no matter how fragile, was fuel. The tabloids were slower to catch on, but once they did, they circled like hawks. Headlines started appearing. Chemistry on screen. Or off? Are Can and Demet more than just co-stars? Paparazzi began lurking outside studios, snapping photos of cars leaving late at night, zooming lenses through tinted windows in hopes of capturing a glimpse. Can, always protective, grew visibly tense in public, jaw clenched whenever he noticed cameras. Demet, who hated confrontation, tried to hide behind laughter, brushing off questions with practiced ease. But even their denials added to the story. If there was nothing to hide, why did they seem so nervous? The pressure followed them onto the set. During one interview, a reporter casually asked Demet about working with Can. She smiled, gave the expected answer about professionalism and talent, but when she looked down for just a fraction of a second, fans caught it. The clip went viral. People slowed it down, zoomed in, dissected every blink and hesitation. Look at her eyes, fans insisted. She's hiding something. For Can, the rumors were a test of patience. Known for his boldness, he hated playing games with the truth, but this was bigger than him. Their careers were on the line. The show that had catapulted them into stardom was still filming, and producers made it clear, any scandal could sink the entire project. He was told to be careful, to avoid being seen with her outside of work, to protect the illusion. But how do you protect an illusion when reality refuses to stay hidden? Their friends noticed the change. At cast dinners, they no longer sat side by side but across the table, always with others between them. On stage at promotional events, they kept their hands clasped politely rather than letting them brush naturally. Yet even as they tried to create distance, the truth slipped through. A stolen glance across the room. A smile that broke too quickly when cameras flashed. These weren't the mistakes of people who didn't care, these were the mistakes of people who cared too much. The rumors became a storm. Fans argued endlessly online. Some insisted it was all fabricated, that people were seeing what they wanted to see. Others defended them fiercely, they're in love and they're afraid to show it. Can't you see? Every magazine cover, every headline, every anonymous source only deepened the mystery. The forbidden story was no longer just theirs, it belonged to millions of strangers who were desperate to know the truth. And in the middle of it all, Can and Demet were caught between two impossible choices: to confess and face the fire, or to hide and let the weight of secrecy crush them from the inside out. The more they tried to hide, the more impossible it became. Love has its own gravity, and no matter how carefully Can and Demet planned to keep their distance, they always found themselves pulled back toward each other. But with every step closer, the risk grew sharper, like walking barefoot across broken glass. Their secret meetings were never grand or romantic in the traditional sense. They didn't dine in candlelit restaurants or stroll hand in hand through crowded streets. Instead, they learned to live in the shadows. A quiet drive down back roads at midnight, headlights dimmed. A shared coffee in a friend's apartment, where curtains were always drawn tight. Sometimes it was nothing more than sitting in silence in the same room, listening to the hum of the city outside, grateful for just an hour where the world couldn't see them. Can, usually fearless, became almost obsessive about protection. He'd arrive first, scanning a street before Demet's car pulled up, making sure no lenses were aimed from across the road. He wore caps pulled low, hoodies zipped high, every move calculated like a soldier avoiding detection. Demet hated the secrecy, it wasn't who she was. She longed for openness, for the simple ability to laugh freely in public, to hold his hand without looking over her shoulder. But she also knew the stakes. Every time she stepped out of her door, she carried not just her own reputation, but the fragile balance of their careers, the livelihoods of dozens of people working on their projects, and the heavy weight of what discovery would mean. There were close calls. One night, after a late shoot, they slipped out separately but ended up at the same small restaurant on the Bosphorus. It was supposed to be safe, a place tucked away from the main roads. They laughed quietly at their luck, sharing a meal in a corner booth. But luck has a cruel way of running thin. A fan, walking past, noticed them through the window. A phone was raised. The photo wasn't perfect, blurred, dim, both of them half hidden in shadows. Still, it made its way online. Within hours, social media was buzzing. Is this them? Why are they together here? Look at the way they're leaning in. Their phones exploded with calls from managers, producers, even family. Be more careful, they were told. Don't give them anything to use. Demet deleted her latest Instagram story, an innocent picture of the restaurant's dessert, before anyone could connect the dots. Can's team issued a vague statement about misleading rumors. But the damage was done. The world had seen a glimpse, and once you give the world a taste of forbidden fruit, it always demands more. And yet, the danger only deepened the bond. In those secret moments, away from the noise, they were themselves, no cameras, no scripts, no eyes watching. Can teased her about the way she hummed while scrolling through her phone. Demet laughed at how he always burned his tongue on hot tea because he was too impatient to wait. They spoke about dreams, fears, and futures that seemed impossible to claim. And every time they parted, there was a heaviness in the air, a silent question left hanging: how much longer can we live like this?